Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you had a great breakfast. We hope you enjoyed all of day one's activities because we have a very special opening keynote for you this morning from one of my friends who I've known for quite a while. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our morning keynote. Please help me welcome Paul Lau, CEO of SMUD.
Thank you, Ricky, for the warm welcome. It's always hard to share the same stage as Ricky because he's so impeccably dressed every morning and bubbly every morning. Doesn't matter what time you see him, he's always like that. So thank you for the warm welcome. So I'm really excited to be here today, really, to kind of give you an update of what's going on with SMUD. Now, the theme of WE3 Summit is to engage, educate, and empower attendees to drive efforts to address global change issues. It is a fantastic theme. And those are the three things. That's how SMUD is motivating our communities and our partners really to think about, to adopt behaviors and find innovative solutions and drive meaningful change in California's capital region. Now, as many of you know, in 2020, we committed to the most aggressive climate change goals of any large utility in the US that we know of. So our goal is to get to absolute zero by 2030 from our power plant side. We have 5 power plants. We basically emit right now about 2 million metric tons of carbon, but we are really pledging right now by 2030, we're going to completely decarbonize it. Now, on top of that, because when you talk about carbon and climate change, you cannot not talk about both the building and transportation industry. So we're also pledging to drive down really about 20% of the carbon that is actually emitting from the building and transportation sectors. To give you just a point of reference, SMUD right now emits about 2 million metric tons of carbon. The building and transportation sector emits 8 million metric tons of carbon. And so we're actually pledging to reduce 1 million metric tons of carbon by 2030 from the building and transportation sector. So to give us a net minus 1 million metric tons of carbon. So obviously, it's very bold, but one of the big commitments that we did was that we said, for this clean energy transition, we must not leave anyone behind. We really want to make sure that everyone benefits from this clean energy transition and not just those who have the resources. So most of you probably are familiar with SMUD, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but I do think it's helpful to understand who we are because it drives what we do at SMUD and what we're trying to accomplish by 2030. Now, SMUD is the 6th largest community-owned utility in the country and sees everything globally, but we act locally. Now, keeping the lights on and rates affordable has always been 2 most important things to our customers. In every single survey, this is my 41st year with the company, and we started doing customer surveys about 25 years ago. I see Bob Champagne is one of the folks that we work with. And every single survey that we did, they said the biggest value utility brings is make sure the light stays on, make sure the rates is affordable, and making sure you take care of the environment. Those are the 3 things absolutely important. So now our customers has always told us that climate change and what's impacting the environment is very important to them. So in fact, when we rolled out our clean energy vision back in 2020, we had about, I would say, 24 community meetings with 900 different customers and organizations. And once explained to them what we're trying to accomplish together, we had a 90% acceptance rate or thumbs up from our customers. So obviously, it's very important, when you actually look at what's kind of happening to our community and what we need to do to educate them. So I'll give you the kind of clip note version of what our clean energy vision is. So we're not starting from ground zero. Now, SMUD has a long history of being good environmental stewards. So we really set renewable goals and mandates before it was a state mandate. So we're the first utility to reach 20% renewable portfolio standard. That means 20% of our power supply come from renewables. And we adopted the 33% renewable portfolio standard before it became a state mandate. And we also are very aggressive with our energy efficiency. We were the first utility in California to set a goal that was 50% better than the state mandate. So we reduce our load through energy efficiency 1.5% every single year by mandate, and some year we do 2%. So it's no surprise our load has not grown since 2006. For the last 14 years, we're reducing our load 1.5% through energy efficiency. We put in almost 300 megawatts of rooftop solar. Our peak load is only 300 megawatts. And even with the last heat wave, we did not cross it. The hottest period in Sacramento history, and we were 10 megawatts shy from 3299, which was 3,299 megawatts, was really our all-time peak back in 2006. So one of the things that we really, really want to think about as we go forward on this vision was that we actually got our board to change our goal. Instead of just being electric utility, we said, you know what, for this clean energy division to happen, we need to become basically a partner, a powerful partner for inclusive zero carbon economy. That means there's three goals that we need to do. The first thing you heard me talk about, we need to maintain our world-class reliability, right? We need to make sure the rates are affordable. Now, currently, our rates is about 45% below our neighbor, and you hear a lot of customers telling us, well, advocates telling us, hey, you can raise the rates, you can do so much more. And I said, anybody who actually has not talked to the customer about rates don't know what they're talking about. When I first became customer service, I had a rate increase of $2.20. This is 20 years ago. And I gave the speech in this, and just like this, in a room like this, to customers and say, "Oh, it's great. The rate increase is de minimis. It's $2.20." And I had this elderly lady came up to me afterwards, said, "Mr. Lau, now I want to tell you something. I do not go to Starbucks. $2.25 means a loaf of bread that'll feed me for a week. And I swear to God, I was looking for a table just like this to crawl under when I did that." That really is the first time to give me the paradigm shift. It said, us in the utilities, right, we live and breathe it. For customers, day to day, you have to understand what the impact the bill actually has on them. So one of the things that we also look at, too, is that, you know what, when you have a vision like that, you need to think about doing things for multiple impact. When you're looking at our projects, you need to look at not just about carbon, but you need to look at the air quality. You need to look at inclusive workforce development. You need to look at inclusive economic development, so to make sure that no one actually gets behind. And just some point in fact, Sacramento is one of the dirtiest air basins in in the US. And kids in the Sacramento region have a 20% higher chance of getting childhood asthma. So when we moving forward this clean energy vision, you want to make sure that you address things that are really, really important to the community itself. And so really, when we actually talked this vision together, we said there are three main things you need to do, which is directly in line with the theme of WE3 is. The first thing you really need to do is partner like you never have before. You need to partner with the regulators, with the industries, right? You need to invite, and you need to partner with your customers, making sure that everyone's aligned. And the second piece you need to do is innovation. You need to innovate. You need to invite everyone in the world who think the importance of tackling climate change, one of the biggest threats facing mankind. You need to invite the best and brightest to come in and innovate along with you. You want to set a big table. And then the third one is that you want to have organization agility. I know me and Deepak was talking about this morning. Utilities are usually pretty conservative because we have so many rules and regulations that we got to do. But there's also things that you need to do to engage the customer side that really the utility traditionally has not tapped. So really our plan is to, for those of you who are interested, I think I said last night, we have put in a very flexible plan to get to absolute zero by 2030. And if you want to measure in net zero, is a minus 1 million tons of carbon. And we're going to do it in 4 tranches. One is that we're going to look at our 5 gas-fired plants. We plan to shut down or put in a hot layup 2 of those by 2025. And both of those plants are in disadvantaged communities. And then we're going to repurpose the remaining 3, hopefully through hydrogen or carbon capture and sequestration, and we're tripling down our renewables. We're going to put in almost 3,000 megawatts of renewables and batteries by 2030, and we're going to spend about $4.7 billion doing that. So as I said earlier, if you guys are interested, we do have a plan that's on our website. I think if you're really bored, you can actually download the 174-page plan. I think Brian said he might yesterday from dinner. And then there's a 24-page executive summary. And I think this is a very flexible pathway that I think we can get 90% of the way there through existing technology, but the remaining 10% has to come from innovation. It has to either come from hydrogen that you can actually burn both for the gas-fired plants or the transportation sector, long-duration battery, that's more than 2 to 4 hours a day, and you really need to think about carbon capture and sequestration as a transition. So I got to go back one. See. So one of the things when we talk about having an open invitation to others, let's go back to the theme of engage, educate, and empower, because they apply directly to the work that we're doing to achieve our goals. Now, we made lots of progress since we launched our zero carbon plan last year. And in my time today, I'll talk about the specific areas we're focusing on today and the progress we're making. So the first is battery storage. The second is electric vehicles. The third is new customer programs. And the fourth is what we call community impact strategies. That's something that we're extremely proud of, and I think it's pretty innovative. So first, to engage. So engaging in storage, I think, is a game changer that can accelerate our clean energy future. I think everybody agrees to that, because one of the things with renewable energy right now is because they're intermittent. And so you have to find a way to store those intermittency and use it when the grid actually needs it. And so I'm going to talk about a couple partnerships. So as you know, energy storage have really broad benefits, including grid resiliency, demand charge management, energy cost management, EV charging mitigation, distribution capacity support, peak shaving, solar integration, and optimization and more. So our plan is to call for 1,200 megawatts of energy storage by 2030, and including 300 megawatts of long duration. So while today's technology is only 2 to 4 hours, we really need a 10-hour batteries and more. And ultimately, we need this to continue for days and weeks of storage capacity and for longer duration batteries to be commercial at scale. So most of you know, I live in Northern California. During the wintertime, the sun isn't there a couple weeks at a time. So what happened is that you really need to make sure you have an energy source, a storage source that can integrate those renewables when it's available and use it when the grid actually needs it. So our next 5-year plan is to conduct multiple pilots to optimize the technologies and making sure that what's good for the customer is also good for us, and making sure one of the things that we're doing right now is making sure that we're inviting companies with new technologies come in to pilot with us. So we are engaging ESS right now, a company that is putting in iron flow batteries that we're going to put in, I think, 20 megawatts next year and up to 200 megawatts by 2030. And so it makes a lot of sense for us because, number one, is a different type of battery technology compared to lithium ion. It right now has a 4 to 6 hour, and we're working with them and DOE to try to get down to 8 to 10 hours. And one of the most important things about this partnership is that it's not only about having a US-built manufacturer, but one thing they committed to is really moving to Sacramento, bringing some of their R&Ds, making Sac State, our local university, a center of excellence, but also committing to train folks from the local community, especially from disadvantaged communities, to work on assembling and installing those units. So certainly we've been actually out in the community talking about it. We've been working with ESS, working with DOE, working with the labor unions, working with everyone basically to try to understand, say, this is a new technology coming, and we want people from Sacramento to be a part of that engagement. So it's really great. I mean, another thing that we're doing is that an innovative program called Storage Share. So Electrify America was basically fined by the California Air Resources Board, right, for some of the stuff they did with the emissions. And so what they did is that they were going to put a bunch of DC fast chargers in Sacramento, and they're going to put in batteries for demand arbitrage. But where they're putting it at, we have excess capacity. So we say, you know what? Why don't we partner together, put those batteries in a training center that we can learn how to integrate renewables with it, train the local folks how to work on those batteries, and we'll give you a virtual arbitrage. So you get the same demand arbitrage that you would the batteries there, but we both get to share the benefits. So this is called Storage Share. I think it's one of the first in the nation. So this is what we want to talk about, right? When you talk about engaging your partners, your customers, you really want to make sure that you understand whatever challenge they're trying to solve, and how do you create that win-win solutions for them. So that's one of the things that we're working on, and something that we're very proud of, because we're actually working with them right now to get the first installation in the disadvantaged communities. So when you talk about grid resiliency, we're putting those long duration batteries, well, 4 to 6 hours, not long as what the utility standards, but long in the battery standards, to start thinking about when you have an outage. You have in the distribution systems, how are you going to use those batteries to actually increase grid resiliency? And then the other piece is educate, right? Our work is to encourage electric vehicles adoptions in the area where I think education is critical. So in August, we launched our managed charging pilots, which is with Ford, General Motors, and BMW. So this will help our EV customers to really think about when is the best time to charge their electric vehicles in a way that's beneficial for them financially, that meets their lifestyle, and doesn't really impact the grid or produces minimum impact to the grid. And we're also educating the customer of electric vehicles. I mean, a lot of you guys hear about electric vehicles right now, when to charge it, when not to charge it. But we said, you know what? Electric vehicles is both a blessing, it could be really a blessing, or it could be a major challenge to utilities. So if you think about it, right now we're getting requests from customers to put in 19.2 kW chargers. So for those of you maybe who's not in the electric world, right, that's having 4 air conditionings put in your house at one time. And most of the customers don't need that. But when they go to buy their car, usually electric utilities are not even in the picture. So by the time we're in the picture, they call us up and say, hey, I bought the 19.2 chargers, and I need you to come install it. And we came back and said, well, you need to upgrade your panels, you need to run secondaries, we can't install it. Or it's going to cost you $20,000 to install it. So it's a really horrible experience for the EV customers. So one of the things that we're doing right now is that we said we want to get ahead of it. We want everyone in Sacramento, when they buy an EV, think about SMUD first. We can actually educate you, help you to find the best chargers, the best installers, and really right-size the charging units at your house so that we doesn't create those issues when they come and call us and we said, we had to do system upgrade just to serve you. And it's going to cost you $8,000 to upgrade your panel from 200 amps to 400 amps. So we want to really make sure that there's unintended consequences when you don't get in front of the customers and educate them about the impact of EVs and how do you actually need to charge those EVs. And one of the things I'm very, very proud of, too, is that to get EVs in the disadvantaged communities, we created something called e-mobility hubs. We actually partner with the local air quality districts and the local workforce agencies and the local nonprofits, and we put what we call a EV hub in the disadvantaged communities so people have access to electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles that they can actually go online and reserve and use for free to take the kids to school, to basically to go look for jobs or to go, take the kids to the doctors. And so this is something that we're also introducing, the workforce piece of it. We're actually training local folks from those communities to help with the installations of those mobile hubs. And so right now we have a plan, and we're working with the local agencies to create multiple of those hubs. Maybe I think there's 12 of those that we want to do. And then the last one is that we want to empower our customers. So we have a lot of things in the work in our customer programs. So one of the things that we're doing is also working with them, like I said earlier, right, on the electric vehicle side. Well, one thing I forgot to mention that we also involved with the DOE, the unions, the IOUs, the OEMs, with something called Vehicle to Everything, V2X. Because right now, there's this huge, huge drive to understand the impact of electric vehicles charging and discharging into the grid itself. And so one thing that we are actually working on right now for electric vehicle side of, we are working with the local schools. We have a school district called Twin Rivers that have 60 electric buses that we help them get. Now we're actually experimenting, how do you use those buses and charge back to the grid during peak hours? Because think about it, SMUD, we are going to have, based on the mandate in California, 8 million electric vehicles by 2030. We're going to have about 300,000 of it. And each of those cars can easily pump 5 kW back to the grid. But that means equivalent of a couple hundred megawatts, which is one of our power plants. So we can actually optimize what the customer is investing and what the benefit that SMUDs get and share on that benefit is really where we want to go. So one of the biggest things that I think utilities, at least for us, need to think about is how do you engage the customers and educate the customers? But more importantly, what programs and tools that you're going to empower them to make the decisions. So one thing we were talking about this morning, right? I think that California had a great test on September 6th, day after Labor Day weekend. How many of you here in the room received the Amber Alert text on your phone? Oh, I'm surprised. Because what happened was that California was going to be short, about 2,000 megawatts for the IOUs. SMUD, we were going to be maybe okay because our peak is actually earlier. But what happened was that because California was going to be short, the governor actually called California Office of Emergency Services, issue a text. And within 20 minutes, California dropped 2,400 megawatts, which is equivalent to like 5 gas-fired plants in 20 minutes. SMUD, we dropped 140 megawatts with simply a text. And so this kind of proves to you, if customers understand the actions that they take and the impact that they have either on their lifestyle, which is avoiding rotating outages, or helping the grid, right? Making sure that the grid actually is resilient or making the grid is reliable. So that is a great experiment that I'm sure we'll be talking and looking at for a while. So one of the things that we're looking at right now is how do you engage our customers to voluntarily work on demand or low flexibility programs to making sure that when they do investment on those distributed energy resources, they can first how to optimize the benefit they have themselves. But more importantly, when the need arises, is there things that they can do differently that can actually benefit them and the grid and Sacramento as a whole? So during that heat wave, I made the calls to the city, the county, the airport, everybody I know in Sacramento. And we were able, even before the text came through, was able to get our customer to shift about 200 megawatts. And we're a 3,300 megawatt utility, so about 8%, just through talking to our customers. And in fact, we made it to the news, which normally you don't want to make it in the news during a heat wave for electric utility. Because the news we got was, oh my goodness, the airport was running on backup generators. One of our terminals was running on backup generators on the request of SMUD. That's all it was said. So it was great. And the reason why I brought this up is that I think it's so important what WE3, what SEW is actually doing, is creating that platform, the customer 360 platform, right? So that we know what's actually at the customer site. We know what programs, what actions we can take to encourage them to take certain actions that is actually beneficial to them and also beneficial to the utility. So right now, we're launching a bunch of programs, something called My Energy Optimizer. So we're actually encouraging customers who have solar and batteries to let us have control of those batteries a few hours a year. And we have multiple levels. So we're going from offering up to $5,000 in incentives. And for people who signs up even with thermostats that we can actually control. $50 for just signing up and $25 each summer for a lot being on the program. So we're really doing a lot right now because I do believe that's really one of the untapped areas for the utilities is how do you engage the customer? And I think the theme is great, right? When you talk about education, engaging, and empowering. And so that's really the journey that SMUD is on right now, because we said to get to the absolute zero target, to get to the minus 1 million metric ton carbon target, we cannot do it alone. We're too small. And even when we can do it for Sacramento, when you're talking about addressing climate change, it's not enough. We need everybody in the US. We need everybody in the world to have the same mindset. Because the reason I'm doing this is because I have 3 kids. I have 2 daughters and a son. And in my 40 years working in the utilities, this is the first time my kids are actually interested in what dad is doing. Because now it's actually it's cool to be in the power industry. When I joined the industry 40 years ago, everybody said, Paul, I don't know why you're doing this. The hot field is actually in Silicon Valley. Since you're an electrical engineer, you should actually go to Silicon Valley. Why would you want to work for oh my God, a utility out of all places, who never changes, who's, when we talk about utilities being slow and no when you come to innovation. So I'm very happy I went to Sac State and become a power engineer, and this is my 44th year with the company. So now one of the things I also want to talk about that's really important to me is really about, besides empowering the communities to do what's right, but there's also a whole segment of the community that doesn't have the resources and really all the education, all the time to help in this energy transition. So we have to be very, very intentional in doing, when we're going forward with our programs, that we have the equity in mind. How do you actually bring everyone along, every community along, without leaving them behind? So we created something called a community impact plan. So I think we're the first one in utility that we actually map every single community in our service territory. We look at the job status, the income, the jobs, the health, air quality, and we lay something called the heat map. So when we are going in and put programs together and we're offering incentives and we're looking at workforce development, we're working for economic development to try to attract new business to come in those areas, we know exactly what the needs are. So we're doubling down. We spend usually about $6 million a year to actually help those communities and, more importantly, those organizations, those nonprofit organizations that serve those communities. So we actually help them to build capacity. So we're increasing our budget from $6 million to $13 million this year to making sure those organizations that are deeply embedded in those communities have the resources to expand the capacity, and then we're also increasing something we call the SMUD Ambassador Program. We're actually hiring folks from those communities to be SMUD ambassadors. So when they go out and talk to those communities, they understand the cultural implications, they understand really kind of the financial implications, and then really kind of the social economics on that community. So that's something that we're very proud of. And for those of you who's interested, I can certainly send you a copy of the map. At least right now, we have even down to the federal level on Equity 40. And we have to have all those criteria overlay in all our communities in Sacramento. And you can just click on the map, or go to the map and click on it. It tells you what the economic makeup of those communities are. So I was told, in interest of time, I want to make sure I'm actually on track, and because I know everyone's busy and I know there's other topics. But as you can tell, this is something that I think SMUD, our board, is very passionate about. We really think about, the sole reason for SMUD's existence is to improve the quality of life for our community that we serve. We're a nonprofit, so we don't make any money on capital investments. A lot of you in this room understand, and this really. And I'm glad we have two great models, right? You have the POUs and IOUs, and they both serve different purposes. But I think only by working together, we can actually get to where we need to go. And I'm really happy that we have forums like this, that at least SMUD, in our own little world, can actually share some of the experiences that we're doing that we think is making a difference, at least for our community. And we hope that, hearing today, hopefully there's a couple of takeaways from my little sharing the experience today, that if you have an idea how to engage customers to tackle climate change, give us a call. If you're companies that you have new software to actually think about how do you manage charging and EVs, solar and batteries, give us a call. And if you have really some out-of-the-box ideas that you just want to bounce some ideas from electric utilities, give us a call. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak to all of you today. And I hope that if you're not too bored, download the 2030 plan, that you can actually see. And as I said, I think all of us need to work together on this, because this is not at least for us, it's not a Sacramento issue. It's not a California issue. It's really a global issue. And I think only by working together and partnering and learning from each other can we actually make a huge difference in this, I think, one of the biggest things that's facing mankind right now. So again, thank you so much for inviting me here today.